Welcome back to another week of with our expanded panel this week, getting into all the fun from the week. I don't know. I think we should just avoid the April Fool's stuff for the moment. But there was some good ones. I don't know. I think Googlers have way too much time on their hands, personally.
All right.
How's everybody doing?
Excellent. Great.
Great.
Good.
Well, whatever Steve's got, he's got to start sharing it. So I don't know.
The rest of us can handle
it.
Today's silliness brought to you by Vitamin Water.
And Dimetap.
So, okay, the first little bit of interest here was stuff I came across earlier this week.
That was close.
That I thought. And no, we're not talking rank brain, just so you all know. I'm not going there. Okay, so, hey. Anyone see this little piece of awesome?
I shared it, yes.
Yeah. Anybody catch this one?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sorry, like the street names aren't even the same or anything. It was like, doesn't, like, don't you look at your work order and go, like literally a demolition crew fucking just used Google Maps. Google Maps got it wrong. They stated, okay, we fucked up. But really, you've got an address on a fucking work order. Like, don't you look down and notice the street names anymore? Like, I was like, oh my God. What?
No. Have you never met a demolition crew? You're lucky they could work Google Maps.
That's kind of what I told my wife about the story. I told my wife about the story, and yeah, that's what she said. She was like, and I said, well, they're construction workers. Come on, like, But, so yeah, literally, this woman I guess was damaged already. But anyways, they came and tore the whole place down, and it was the wrong place. All the furniture flying out the window and shit might have been a first hint. I don't know.
Now, do we think it was really a put-up job? Was this an insurance?
I don't think this is the first time something like that's happened, though.
No, they did it twice. This is in my city. They did this twice, and they did 2 houses by accident. Because it was a duplex, half-size.
Company or just in general it happened?
But it's not like Google is coming there and demolishing these properties, right? It's just
no, there was a woman who tried to sue them a few years ago.
Using Google Maps to figure this out.
Yeah, there was this woman a couple of years back, probably on the regulators, and she was had her phone up to her face like this, and she was following Google Map directions, and she walked into traffic and tried to sue Google because they didn't show that road there. She got hit by a car.
Oh, that's like
what they haven't told,
and stupid at the same time.
It's actually a conspiracy. The person that they demolished the building of was from a bad review. You don't know that.
My fault.
I guess it begs the other question: are people putting too much faith in technology and/or Google or whatever?
Or even reviews, exactly.
Or human intelligence.
Yes, like you still have to use your brain, people.
Well, unfortunately, common sense isn't so common anymore.
These are tools.
Well, and we've had plenty of
replacements.
instances of cops kicking in the wrong door.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd probably rather a cop kicked in my door than have someone demolish my home.
I find it hard to believe nobody checked the house before they started tearing it down.
Well, they claim that they did, right?
Well, but it's not like these houses actually were like houses. They were like broken down things.
No, it was apartment complex, I believe. Actually,
it was a duplex, basically one house on one piece of slab with both sides.
One word: citations.
Right duplex accidentally demolished.
Crazy.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I started wondering when I read it if it was an April Fool's thing because it was, beginning of the week, but apparently it's true.
Oh, here's the local news story for Fox 4. That's before they blamed Google. Google came after. So I don't know that Google was actually blamed. It was just somebody screwed up on the direction. The house number was the same, but it was
No. Actually, no. In that article, they had a response from Google, and Google did say that they got it wrong. They didn't obviously admit culpability. They're idiots, but no, actually, Google did have the wrong listing, and apparently Yahoo and Bing had it right. So that is what it is.
Well, there you go. Switch to Bing.
There we go.
Solution for everything.
The maps engine of choice for demolition experts.
Paying the people that don't know the difference between a penguin and a puffin.
Yes. Bing's homepage for April Fool's today had some dancing, what they thought were penguins, but as Doc so succinctly noted later on in the chat room that no, that's a puffin. So, Bing can't even get their own shit right. Whoever made that, Doc, probably just went to their image search engine and put in penguin, and it came up with the wrong paper. Okay, my next news piece, I get to be lazy, because like I said earlier, the more people there are here, the lazier I get to be. So, hey, Jen, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, great. Would you like to tell us about our next news story?
AMP?
See, I'm good at lazy.
Pretty much, people need to get on board with AMP, and if you don't, you'll regret it later, because you need to sort out all your... Once you employ AMP, you're going to have like all these errors that are going to pop up, but it'll take a while to show up. So basically do it now, because Google says they're going to expand it into more than just news. That's a Cole's Notes version.
Well, yeah, which is a good question. So where is it being mostly employed at this point? So news is what you know about it, or?
Yeah, it's just right now in the news carousel that shows up on mobile. So, and that does include blogs. A lot of people don't realize that blogs can show up in that carousel because it's something completely different from Google News. So if you have a blog, it's worth showing up and getting your AMP up and running.
Getting your AMP up and
more
running.
things that are not for people.
I know. I kind of like AMP. I've been checking a lot of results with AMP, and I do like it. Especially I've been traveling a lot and on my horrendous Canadian data plan down in the States, and that part of me really, really loves AMP. But ironically, here in Canada, it's not employed up here, which I was like, what?
Which again, I guess, folks, the question is I know many times Steve and Terry and we used to talk about things like anything new that came out of Google, and we always kind of waited on it. It was HTTPS or whatever. You almost kind of let it gestate for a while. So what's everyone advising clients at this point?
If you have WordPress, you can just do the plugin, and it kind of does it for you. So there's really no reason not to kind of employ it and see what your feedback is on it and how many page views are actually happening. If there's no page views happening, there's no real value in it. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see it go into more mobile search results beyond just the news, and probably sooner rather than later, because they're pretty pumped up about it.
It's such a case-by-case basis when it comes to clients, because some have a good, strong mobile strategy at the moment, and it's going to be really important for them. Some need to sort out the basics of their mobile strategy before they start worrying about AMP too much, but you do tell them to incorporate that thinking so that you're measuring twice, cutting once. And then there's others for whom mobile really isn't that much of a big deal for them at the moment, and they've got other bigger problems. So you've got to kind of look at where they are and what scale you're looking at as well. If they're only worried about the next 6 months, I wouldn't worry too much about AMP. But if they're looking at the next year, 2 years, they're going to need to think about AMP now.
The problem is like I know quite a few larger companies that rolled out brand new websites January 1st, December. And they're, when we approach them, well, now we've got AMP to deal with, and they're like, we just spent $60,000 or $100,000 on a website, get stuffed in very loud and flavorful and colorful language. to have to constantly keep investing that kind of money is ridiculous for some of these companies.
Yeah, you know, I've got a client now who's in the final stages on their dev server, corporate client, big, you know, site, multi-million-dollar revenues online, whatever, and they're just finishing the redevelopment now, meaning it's almost ready for rollout out of the dev server. So I'm running over everything, and you know, they've just literally in this rollout got around to getting their semantic code all in order. You know what I mean? They're just barely getting their head around that stuff, and now all of a sudden, you know, they're asking me, what is this AMP? What should we do with it? And I'm like, you know, at this point, the where they are in the development process, you can't start from scratch with that and start going that direction.
How about someone tell us what the heck this is? Because if I don't know, there's got to be more people. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, and we're going to give that one. Oh, okay.
Nutshell. AMP is a framework for faster mobile pages. It gives you a very limited syntax and language to work with, so it's kind of a cut-down version of easy-to-use parts. It's really important already for news. If you're looking at news for the next 3 months, you really ought to be thinking about AMP. Because news people do consume on mobile devices a hell of a lot. It may not be as important for your e-commerce in the short term, but I am expecting mobile e-commerce to keep increasing. You know, there are increasingly more parts of the world coming online where mobile is their only access. It's not a choice.
Now Java doesn't JavaScript go out the window with this? Doesn't JavaScript go out the window, right?
You can use a set library of JavaScript, which is basically a sort of Node, Angular type thing. You know, you've got a framework you can use. The advantage for Google is it limits what they're having to work out. And, of course, it also limits your ability to play certain tricks. There's almost nothing you can do to do sneaky redirects and things like that in the framework.
How does it impact Google now?
I don't care. I want to know what.
I believe from I believe from what Jennifer was saying that at this point it's more of a news universal thing. But as with all things Google, you know, they start in one place and then expand. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yeah, they have said they're going to expand. So it's just a matter of time and when and what parts. And they've also mentioned, or the Googler refused to comment about it expanding into AdWords, which will be pretty big if they do go there as well.
Bosky!
What would be the advantage to me as a site owner? Why would I do it? Google. Why would I do it?
Twitter, I believe, is using it now as well.
Terry, it's a lot like the HTTPS and other stuff. You know what I mean? That there's a small ranking advantage potentially, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean?
That's a bullshit. I've yet to hear anyone say they got higher rankings by adding HTTPS. In fact, I've heard the exact opposite, that it's very hard to implement, and we should all know that if you develop websites, when you add that layer of security, that slows down your website, which kind of negates trying to speed it up.
Which is the opposite of AMP, Terry. I mean, AMP, by having a limited framework, it means that things like the JavaScript are already pre-cached because almost every site is using the same framework.
Okay, so now I understand the advantage to me. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. What's the advantage to me? If it loads stuff on mobile faster, that's what I want to hear. I don't care what Google wants, because author was going to be a big thing too, and now it's what? Nothing. It was a complete waste of time if you're looking beyond ranking tomorrow.
Well, no.
Ammon. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
A different way of looking at it, I guess.
Authorship morphed into schema.
Oh, come on. Move on. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
I don't.
Anyways, Ammon, for anybody listening, whatever. So, you know, one of the starting points I go with this too is in analytics you can go and see how much of your traffic is actually mobile and so on. Like, I know that's still going to keep growing and that's undisputed, but if you're not, you know, and you go to your analytics, like how do you advise anyone watching, listening, whatever, how to start coming around to make that decision? Especially if you got a custom CMS. Like a lot of my corporate clients have custom CMS. This isn't a WordPress plugin, right? So.
This is one of those ones that you really have to struggle with analytics, because analytics can only tell you about the traffic you're already getting. So if you're failing on mobile, you won't see it in your stats. It's self-defeating. You know, oh, mobile's only 10% of my visits, so it's not really that important. Yeah, maybe because it's not that important is why it's only 10% of your visits. Across the web, mobile is already over 50%. If you're not seeing that,
so if you're not optimizing for mobile, that could be why you've got such a low retention or visit rate.
Or just not getting the traffic in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd just like to add that I think you also, like all search, have to be in the context of the user. For me, a lot of the mobile traffic is on like using social media and stuff like that. I don't know many people, unless they're sitting somewhere and they're waiting, that are using their phones for search.
Oh my gosh.
Or if they're driving around or something. My point is, most people will do some specific types of surfing only on the desktop because it's so hard to work with the information that you find on a phone.
Okay, quick rule of thumb. I mean, it used to be that we thought, okay, well, people with money will always have a good internet connection. It's just, you know, the ones who've only got a phone, that's generally the cheaper, you know, end of the market. Well, that's no longer true, because more and more of the busy executives are using their phones all the time, so it's actually their most familiar device. They will come first on their phone because they're used to doing everything first on their phone.
Well, so, to add to that, when I was back home just recently, and at a family gathering, and out of the 30 or so people in the room, not one of them even owns a computer anymore. They all do 100% of everything they do on their phones.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
we've certainly seen.
Add to that, people do searches from store shop floors, looking for reviews, looking for products to compare what they're considering buying, and looking for cheaper prices. So they don't carry their desktop computer around with them.
And even, you know, in business networking, somebody mentions a company and you've got your phone there, you can already be looking them up. So actually the mobile phone is often the first point of contact somebody is going to have with you, and it's so important to get that right these days. Certainly, if you're in global trading, if you want traffic from the Far East, the Middle East, Africa, you need a mobile strategy. Mobile first.
You know, in the business-to-business marketplace, a lot of people will get an initial idea as to who they want to go and check out if they have to go out and spend a budget on a high-ticket item. But invariably, from my experience, they'll go back and they'll do a ton of research on their desktop. Because if they're looking, for instance, I deal a lot in the CCTV AV space, and when someone's looking to spend 100 grand, 50 grand, whatever, they might initially go to Google Maps to get some ideas as to local companies who they can go to, but invariably we found that when their clients are looking to maybe maybe put together a tender or work out who the top 2 companies are in the UK to go out and to go and get them to talk about it, most of the time they spend is on a desktop, because on a mobile you're limited. And even though mobile is such a big thing as well as AMP, there's still an absolute ton of companies, B2Bs, B2Cs, who aren't even mobile optimized, let alone thinking about AMP. You know, so in my experience with B2B, you know, the way that a lot of what we do is B2B on the high ticket items. We found through doing. Sorry.
Tony, I was just going to agree with you. That was basically what I was saying, is you can't take these numbers and just apply them to everything. You have to look at the unique business, their model, all that stuff, and take it all into account when you're making these kinds of decisions. I think there's too much of just looking at numbers. I don't think
each segment is unique.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, this is where a lot of, you know, I mean, even I get the emails. I know Jen does as well. You know, hey, you know, you need SEO. You know, you must get a mobile site. You must get AMP. Each individual, as you just said there, guys, each individual company, depending upon, I mean, imagine a company who deals in this space of you know, selling to or having an audience that has an audience of, say, over 40s, over 50s. Are you seriously telling me that the people in that bracket and above, you know, a lot of them aren't going to be tech savvy. A lot of them aren't going to know this. A lot of them are going to go and look on some old 486DX PC to, you know. So, yes, in an ideal world with everything equal, of course, a mobile experience is key. But we always, in marketing, we always see things, and I'm to blame for this as much as anyone else. We always see things from our own perspective. You know, half of the struggle, half of the challenge for us is getting out and seeing it from the non-marketer perspective. And my God, businesses who might have a marketing plan in place, but who don't, you know, who they don't see SEO or internet marketing as we do. They just go to Google, they Google something, and they think, oh, great, I found the top 3. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of it is about trying to see things from others' perspectives.
Well, you know, that's you know, I'm infamous for that, and the guys used to laugh at my ass because I would take, you know, back in the day I would take a computer into the pub and ask people to do search tasks, say, go find this for me, and watch how they go about it and watch how they do it. These days it's actually mobile phones, you know what I mean? I'm you know, literally last night I was sitting down at the pub and I had the mobile phone out and asking people to use voice search to find things and seeing, you know, firsthand the difference between how someone typing compared to how someone would use voice search. You know, we had watched that video yesterday about the future of search stuff, which got me all riled up and my brain hurting. So I went out and started asking people, hey, you know, grab your phone and you know, go find something for me. It was funny actually. We were sitting in the pub down the street here, and it totally geolocated and did a bit of ambiguity. Because all I said into Google, because you started with OK Google, that clears your last search task. So it was OK Google, what was it? I want a beer. And literally, that's all I said. I just said, OK Google, I want a beer. And it brought up the pub I was sitting in as the first listing. Basically, Google said, turn around, dumbass. Go talk to the bartender. You know? It was like, but it was really impressed with how it did that. Yeah. I was like, wow, that's... You know,
that was a really
Millbrook,
cool video.
Here in Millbrook, and here, yeah, that was an excellent video. I really enjoyed that. You know, my wife was playing with it while we were sitting in the pub there too. She saw a bunch of garbage that the owner was taking up to the street because garbage day is today. All she did was pick up her phone and said, Google, remind me to take out the garbage. And the Android came back and said, when do you want the reminder? She said 2 hours, and that was it. Is this okay? Yes. And that was it. It was set. And 2 hours later, when we got home, the phone lit up and said, another one. We have a theater here called the Fourth Line Theater. So I decided to try and mess around with Rank Brain or whatever you want to call it and the geolocating. So all I did was Google play fourth, what was it? Yeah, play fourth line, which are 3 different words. Play could mean a bunch of things, fourth could mean a bunch of things, and the word line could mean a bunch of things. But once again, it took that voice query and turned it, and the first result was the theater that was about 2 miles from where I was sitting. So yeah, mobile's interesting stuff for sure. And I'll
theater in 20 miles though, Dave.
Yeah, but I didn't say theater. I didn't say theater though, Terry. I said play, which could mean, you know, music. It could mean playing with your kids. All I said was play fourth line, which could have mean go find a song named Fourth Line for me, because you can do that too. You can go to voice search and, you know, and say play and name a song, and literally it'll go to YouTube, find the song, and start playing it. So again, yeah, theater wasn't even in the query, but it geolocated me and then started to figure out that ambiguous query based on the geolocation, and it spit it back. Like I said, literally, dude, the first thing I did was say, I want a beer, and it came up with a listing for the bar I was sitting in. So that
And
was kind of neat.
interestingly, Dave and I were talking about this last night, and I went to my Chrome on my desktop and did a voice search for the same thing, play fourth line. And it showed me the number 2, 3, and 4 results were for the fourth line theater in Ontario. All the rest of them, of course, were hockey related.
Play the fourth line. I didn't even
But
think
I'm
of
in
that.
Mexico, so there was no geo there, but I'm on a desktop, so that probably rules out any geo.
Yeah, another one we did was, and again, I don't keep my address anywhere, so I'm assuming that it's geolocated the Android based upon where I am at different times of the day. Terry, I walked out the front of the bar and I just said, "Take me home," and it popped up a Google map. It showed the entire route from the bar to my house, told me how many minutes would be, and da-da-da. So, yeah, the voice search stuff is kind of interesting when you play with it.
I'm surprised a drone didn't come out of the sky and pick you up.
Give it time, Tony. No, my self-driving car would just come down the road and grab me.
Yeah.
Well,
Or they
just
still cab or...
on the voice search thing, that's like not really anymore. And I'm just speaking strictly from Texas and people in Texas, but it's not a novelty. I mean, that's how we do stuff now. You know, I mean, here we talk to Siri crap like that. I get on this phone and I'm like, I'm looking for Pancake House or Mexican restaurant, but it's always local related 9 times out of 10 with voice search. But the other part is I did it a minute ago on Google, where I pulled up Google while we're sitting here and asked a question to Google, because I'm using it on my desktops now for voice search. It's not just a mobile advice. It's why does Google want us to use that feature? You know what I mean? And it'll give me a feedback or whatever through.
Another one she did last night. We were sitting there, and she said, post on David's Google Plus page, and it assumed, I guess, because the email interactions, that I was the David. She didn't even put my last name. Just said put, and literally it recorded her voice, translated it into text, and said, "Is this message okay?" She said yes, and it posted right onto my Google Plus page. So yeah, I've been messing with the voice search stuff a lot.
On the bigger issue of mobile, a lot of money is headed that way. Do you remember the console wars kind of cooling off, and Microsoft weren't even sure they were going to do another console? We pulled out of the battle. You know, basically because their thinking at that time, and as far as I know, a lot of it's still there, is that mobile phones are getting so much more powerful, so much faster, that it won't be long until your mobile phone is your main access device. It's got everything you need because of cloud services and the rest of it. You've got your music services, you've got your game library, anywhere you go, and you'll just be able to stream to your TV if you're in a room with a bigger screen and you want it.
And you'll be trackable.
Well,
sorry, I'm using voice. Let me mute.
But it's interesting watching my kids. You know,
my daughter even took over the Xbox one day and started playing videos by accident from her bedroom upstairs, because her Android communicated with the Xbox and said, you know, do you want to play this video? And the next thing I know, boink, these YouTube videos started playing on the TV, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, Alicia, what have you done? You know, and she's like, oh, sorry, Dad. But yeah, the mobile devices actually do communicate with the Xbox and everything else too. You know, you can stream right off whatever phone you're using onto your TV. So.
Yeah, well, my kids pretty much only go to the computer for certain games that won't run on anything else. But they'll sit for hours with their tablets or even with their phones, watching YouTube, interacting with their friends. You know, mobile is their first choice, and this is the next generation.
Yeah.
Well, and isn't that just like a step in the evolution where we're holding something and eventually we won't even need that, right? I mean, that's just...
Well, no, yeah, no, like, you know, after watching that Future Search thing, you know, I mean, you'll be able to program your oven to know your own personal recipes. And you could put something in the morning before you leave and say, oven, you know, execute this recipe. You know, you could talk to your slow cooker in it, you know, because when I cook a roast, it'll be on, you know, high for 4 hours and then medium or low for the next 2 hours. You'd be talking to every device in your house, your oven, your everything. You know, I mean, and you can give it commands and so forth. You know, that's the ultimate future, I'm sure, with any of this kind of voice.
And then someday your phone will simply interrupt your conversation and say, "David, you need to go to the bathroom."
Well, no, my doc will probably be more like, David, excuse me, you're drunk dialing again. Do you want to terminate this call?
We just don't give a bad review to a demolition company. They'll find you and they'll do you.
Okay, Jennifer, I'm pulling your chain again here, my love. Okay, yeah, well, you know, like I said, I'm just going to be lazy now that I got you in here. All right, so give us this one. What do we got here?
So
I thought this was neat because, again, like one of the things that we were looking at with the voice stuff as well is that you can, you know, put your cell phone in the kitchen and it's hands-free, so that while I'm cooking I can pull up certain things and watch or look at recipes or whatever. Even through Google Voice, I can now just do that with my tablet or whatever, and while I'm cooking have it pulling up and showing me stuff. So.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of times I'm cooking and I either have my tablet or my phone there with the recipe on it rather than, you know, the old school print it out, take it into the kitchen. So there's definitely, I mean, recipes is so huge. There's so many people making a lot of money with it as well. But I thought this was kind of cool because this is a mobile thing, but they've just started adding videos in. And a lot of them are, like, you know, when you go on Facebook and you see those little minute-long videos that shows you how to do something and they have the text written over it so you don't actually have to unmute the video. It's a ton of these kind of things that are showing up in the search results. And the kind of interesting thing is you're not sabotaging yourself from having the traffic because it actually still sends you to your website and to play the video. It's not overlaying it on top of the search results, which is pretty nice. So
now, have you tried this with like a mobile input? Meaning, I know how to hard like hands-free. You know.
This was my mobile.
Okay, Google, how to hard-boil eggs. And if it comes up, can you say all recipes and it plays that video with voice search, or is this all just sort of a text search you were doing?
I can't remember if this one was a text search or voice search. I do both for a lot of testing, but I didn't actually try playing the video from the search results via voice. I just clicked on it and away it went.
I've got something new to play with later. Yay!
Actually,
I'd be curious.
Google just really ramped it up yesterday. It was kind of hit and miss. Once in a blue moon, you'd kind of see these videos in the carousels, and yesterday they were like all over the place.
So yeah, I'm curious. I'll have to try that. Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
No, I was just going to ask Jen. You know, what's the likelihood that with personalized search, you go to the carousel, you click on the video, you've already been doing your shopping with Tesco's or Walmart on your phone. What's to stop these corporations from then, you know, hooking you into various bits and pieces? I mean, to me, it seems a way of such a delve into your life. You know, not just what you eat, but the recipes. I mean, surely there's a tie into that somewhere, and how these other companies can.
Well, it's interesting.
It's always that combination of intrusiveness or convenience. You know what I mean? Two different people are going to have two different opinions on that. You know, I used to be, you know, I've written articles back in 2006 or 7 that when, you know, I was reading patents and I was like, my God, this is kind of like scary privacy concerns or intrusiveness. But 10 years later now, I'm like, well, some of this stuff is a very great convenience, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, a lot of that's social evidence, too. You know, we tend to, we get acclimated to things, and we see everybody else putting up with it, so we put up with it. And, you know, familiarity breeds contempt. After a while, it just, what had you so upset back in 2006 now is just a part of your everyday life. It hasn't gotten any less intrusive. You've just got more.
Well, you know, look at some of the stuff in that future search keynote. There was even the amplification angle, meaning, for those who haven't seen it, I'll put it on the show page afterwards. But he was at one point he was using a Facebook app, and the on focus of that app was this movie by Leonardo DiCaprio, And so all he did was say, okay, Google, which takes you, again, play with your mobile phones, folks, takes you over to Google. And he said, okay, Google, show me the cast. And it showed the cast for that movie. He didn't have to say, show me the cast of this movie of Leonardo DiCaprio. It looked at the app he was using, which was the Facebook app. It looked at the on focus of the screen. And then conversational search takes over from there, and voice recognition takes over. And all he had to say was show me the cast, and boom, it popped up the cast of that movie. And so, there is so much, and I hate to go back to this rank brain crap, but, I still think so much of that is geared towards this ultimate goal of conversational search, voice recognition, and AI and, machine learning stuff. So.
Well, and the quality of voice, the conversational has improved so much, too. I notice now probably 10% the errors that initially they had a couple of years ago.
Well, if you think of rank brain and working with recipes and world cuisine and the different types of, the cultures of each country, my God, I mean, it's going to have a field day. Wow.
But think about even accents. I know in England you guys have many different accents, in the States, the New York accent is different than Louisiana. Here in Canada you've got a different accent from, Ontario to, out west and out east, and start to think like it's a Herculean effort, I think. Like just the voice inflections. We were joking because we were at a bar. What happens when you're drunk? Hey Google, baby, hi. A really cool one, by the way. I asked my wife. I said, because she was just sitting there, literally in the bar, doing all these voice searches, and she said, "Okay, Google, tell me about rank brain." And it came back with Frank brain. And my wife said, no, not Frank. And it corrected it. That's all she said. She said, no, not Frank. And it corrected it F out and showed her listing Frank brain. I thought that was freaking neat, man.
Yeah.
They've been working on that for about 4 years now, because there's a lot of words and a lot of product names that aren't necessarily normal vernacular that people speak that are very unique. And I've been training Google for, I have a client named Evanesque, Evanesque, and they used to think it was Evanescence, but now if you say Evanesque, it comes up correct because I've taught it, and it takes about 30 to 40 times of speaking it and then correcting Google in voice search on a desktop to fix it. Now it used to take somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60, 70.
That's a good point. See, when I get off, I'm going to try that rank brain thing again and see if it comes up with Frank again, or see if it learned. That's a good point.
One of the things that's really interesting about voice search is, of course, it's not important that it works in optimal circumstances. What's really important is that time I'm lost out in the street, it's raining, there's traffic noise, and it can still clearly identify what I'm asking for because I'm in trouble. That's what voice search has to be able to do eventually. It's
pretty good, Yeah, again, a few times last night, there's music in the pub. There's people talking. It was doing pretty good at that, and I've been sorting through 8 months of patents because I got Tony needs me to finish this task. But anyways, I've been searching through stuff, and one of the things I've been collecting a lot of patents on are this direction. And yeah, there is a bunch of different patents on dealing with extraneous noise, and, external ambient noise and stuff like that. So they're definitely working on it. It's really interesting shit, man.
Mm-hmm. Well,
if you haven't played with your Android and your voice lately, folks, do it.
If you have a Gmail account, Google will read, show me Google Now card for Walmart. Oh, come on, you're not going to say it anymore? Now it goes in the Google Now card. It was reading my Gmail because I had a Gmail about testing a Google Now card for Walmart, because right now the Google Now card for Walmart, it triggers off the beacon at the cash register, which then triggers off my phone the minute I walk out and get in my car, which is kind of useless. So the concept
we were
have the reach off my contacts to where the contacts trigger it based on Wi-Fi the minute I hit the parking lot. That's the new thing that's going to happen. And I didn't say that, but I did. So there look.
No, we were even playing with the Google Calendar and stuff. And you could say set a reminder or remind me to, or literally at one point, like I said, we tried a nap thing, which was wake me up in an hour. you know, and each time it still went to Google Calendar, regardless of what bunch of words we used. It still went and set an event regardless.
Did you try waking up before you go?
But that could be just where it's keeping track of the
alarm for 1 o'clock.
Okay, 1 p.m. Setting your alarm.
No, Steve, do this though.
You have to use alarm.
Yeah, but do this. Say you got the Google Voice, right? Just say, "Okay, Google, wake me up in an hour."
Okay, Google, wake me up in an hour.
Okay, 1:42 p.m. Setting your alarm.
Yeah. Yep, and there you go. And your phone will actually go off, and the alarm will come off. Now, if you've got multiple apps for alarms, it actually, you know, yet last night it was asking us which application would you like to use, etc. But yeah, we tried a bunch of different commands, from remind me or just wake me up or, tell me to, and each time it would do that and set it up. And sometimes, like, remind me of my daughter's doctor appointment, and it said what day, and we said what day. Then it said what time. My wife said 4 o'clock. It didn't even bother to ask if that was AM or PM. It assumed it was PM because I'm guessing a doctor isn't open at 4 AM, right? It didn't even ask for AM, PM. It just said okay, and that was it. And it set that reminder and that alarm up. So.
Well, did you specify the doctor's name, and did it look up with the local listings and the hour?
No, it did not ask us about that. It just, set the alarm to remind us of the doctor's appointment. So, which I doubt it was in our contacts, because a lot of things, if it wasn't in the contacts, it was having a bit of an issue if they weren't in the actual contacts.
Well, the thing you got to think is people speak differently than they type.
Google, that's a big thing.
Right,
people forget about that.
And that is it.
Okay, Google, find me a good deal on bean shoes. You know what I mean? And whatever. So I think the difference is you have to translate that, and we've started, I think this was about 2 years ago, we started putting voice-dependent keywords in meta information for web pages for Google to pick up.
And Jennifer, this is the stuff that I think, again, that you and I have been talking about with the rank brain thing, that I think these are the baby steps towards this eventual goal. You know what I mean? This is why I'm a little shocked that so many SEOs aren't really, or search people aren't really understanding where this is going to go eventually, and how this hooks into conversational search, how this hooks into predictive. You know what I mean? Again, this whole AI learning machine approach is why they have to turn it into vectors, and so this is, to me, at the end of the day, where this is headed. This isn't about fucking ambiguous text searches that they don't understand. This is about the holy grail of voice search and understanding those colloquialisms, understanding those, how people speak as opposed to how people type.
Well, I mean, you got to look at it from this perspective, that my need state as a user, based on my position in the purchasing cycle, is going to dictate what I want. Do I want to watch a video? Do I want to play a song? Or do I want to find a deal or an offer or a special on a particular product, which then it knows I'm looking for pricing? So how I say things and what I say things is going to determine the media type that I get back, plus the type of results I get.
Can we talk a little bit, or can you guys talk, because I don't have much to say about it, but I have a question, a little bit about predictive search, predictive analytics, predictive...
No, well, the predictive elements of stuff like rank brain is essentially, again, if we're not entirely sure due to vernacular, colloquialisms, or just plain out wording of something, what do we predict this means? Meaning this set of words. Like, what is the prediction of what that means? Again, and some of that's just going to be related to click data and search tasks. Like, did the person reformat the query if it's voice or otherwise? Are they reformatting that query, or did they complete that task effectively? Again, with Google Voice at this point, I'm sure it'll change, but when you're doing this Google Voice stuff, when you want to start a new search task, you say, okay, Google, and it erases everything, and it starts again. It creates that search task code, which in traditional terms for us is somebody reformatting that query in their search bar. You know what I mean? So, but now you're reformatting it in voice. So predictive elements are trying to figure out what did they mean, and that's where these vectors and things come in. Like the thing that we were playing with Tony, I think it was before you came in. I don't know, probably up at the top. But okay, here, let me. I'm just going to pull something up, and I said I wasn't really going to get into this too much because SEOs, being the douchebags that they are going to take something like this and think it's a new keyword research tool, but that's not really what this is. But we're going to just go here for a second, all right?
While you're quickly looking that up, I just wanted to say, predictive isn't the problem for search that you might think it is, because all of search is predictive. Everything about search is looking at probabilities, not certainties. So when you consider that every ranking signal is given a probability of being reliable and a probability of indicating a certain thing, everything is about probabilities in search. The whole algorithm is about probabilities. If you research things like Bayesian probabilities, it will teach you a lot about search.
Yes, Bayesian rules and Bayesian guidelines. Oh my God, I'm so glad somebody else besides me said that. I don't feel like such
a so see what this is, Kristin, is this is a visual representation of how around rank brain and stuff. You hear a lot about neural nets. What that essentially is, excuse me, is trying to understand how the brain works and applying that to how Google works. All right, and so neurons in your brain fire differently. If you have the word orange and then you have the word apple, the synapses that fire in your brain don't really make a huge firing, meaning there's not a lot of activity because you relate an apple to an orange. Now, if you relate apple to car or orange to car, the synapses in your brain fire far more because they're two, disposition things. So what this tool is it's basically a guy built a visual representation of word to vec. The example I'm using here in this training data set is the king and queen one that a lot of guys have used trying to explain rank brain and shit like that. So, and see how these little things light up here? See how that's lighting up? Okay. So what rank brain? What word to vec we're embedding is doing here? Somebody's got to be. Is the red lines are neural networks that fire closely related to each other. The blue lines are the ones that don't. So in this case, man is relating to George, farmer, house, rice, and not so much to some of the other ones in that graph, in that vector graph, right? Like queen's going to relate more to palace, royal, Mary. So obviously, man's going to relate to George and queen to Mary. But there's also the little intricacies in between the two. So something like a vector graph in something like rank brain is trying to understand how closely related certain words are to each other. But again, this is a neural net kind of thing. So this is they're trying to model the human brain a bit. So that's some of what they're trying to do as far as, the predictive elements are concerned. Again, for people watching, this is not a new keyword research tool, folks. Because, SEOs being what they are.
That is a keyword research tool because it's user behavior and which way. But it's also going to be just by device specific. As in what's my need state? What am I looking for? If I have orange and apple, I'm looking for the orange Apple iPhone 5C.
Yeah, for sure. Again, Doc, you've been walking down this road with me all week. So, as a content creator, Doc, how do you see what you've learned this week as a writer, as a content creator?
Well, first of all, just like Hummingbird did to a degree, as it's getting more contextually focused, it's freeing up the writers to write more to the reader than to the search engine. So good, natural, contextual copy is now much more able to rank. If it's done well and it is contextual, the search engines are much more likely to determine what that content is in your matching query. So it makes the job easier in that regard. You don't have to go through first, you don't have the argument, do I write first to the search engine and secondarily to the users?
All right. Somebody's getting a call there.
Yeah.
Ammon, I know you got Ammon, I know you got to go to dinner at some point. Now, do you, Ammon, in your perspective, do you see this kind of approach of technology? And again, for folks listening, one thing we did learn this week is you really have an issue trying to implement AI and machine learning without turning into vectors. Who is that going? Hello? All right, we're good. Do you think this stuff will be used eventually? Come on, really? Where is that?
Tony, we're getting massive echo from you somehow.
Is it Tony?
Okay.
All right. Okay, we gotta figure out this echo here for a second, folks. Hold on. All right, Tony's muted. There we go. Ammon, I have my own personal perspectives, and Bill's not here, so I'm going to throw it at you. Do you see this kind of approach to technology? They say at this point it's not being used on the crawling side of things, but do you see it eventually, this technology being used to crawl pages, not just for query stuff?
This is one of those things where you've really got to define exactly what you mean by crawl. The crawler is literally going out, doing HTTP requests, grabbing the next request. It's working from a list and crawling. So on the crawler scale,
how about on-page analysis of text and comparing it to its corpus?
Well, this is it. I think that part's already in there to an extent. Google's been using vectors since the start. They've expanded the number of vectors that they look at. This is why this thing about how many ranking signals can be a very difficult thing for Google to say. Oh, we've got hundreds of ranking signals, or we've got hundreds of ranking factors, is because they're looking at the number of edges or the number of vectors that they're looking at. But those vectors themselves are sometimes numbers made up from multiple different signals or data sources. But yeah, I think a lot of this stuff is already in there. We've certainly seen Hummingbird bring in new levels of understanding of relationship, of entities, of concepts, and I think that shows that it's baked in pretty solidly now.
And just for anybody listening, technically speaking, from all the documentation, entities are actually treated as a single vector. So New York City is not considered three separate vectors. An entity which is a person, place, or thing, for anyone who doesn't know, that Ammon's talking about. Entities in this type of system are actually treated as a single vector, which I thought was interesting, Ammon, that it recognizes that. And I think, Terry, weren't you showing me something that they look at for an entity first, then they move on to the rest of the query?
Yeah, that ranking engineer, he spoke that they tried to identify if the query was an entity first, which I think that makes a lot of sense because that's like a simple answer, right? It's almost like that's already compiled for them, for that search.
And docs, well, that comes to that vector input. Remember how the stuff you and I were watching yesterday, they start with a core vector input, and so that makes sense there too, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that was that.
Sorry, Doc. Sorry.
Shin, I think, that was talking about that.
Imagine the core vector is now the user or plus the device. There's two vectors. I am the user. What is my need state? What device am I on? Does that device state change what I want from the keyword result I have based on the device?
I think you're also more liable to get the panels and the one boxes, that sort of stuff on mobile, right, sir? Steve, because that's easier to use than 10 links.
Well, I think you kind of, if you, just for SEO sake, I always have been testing them, but normally whenever I can get a answer box to trigger on the desktop, it always shows up later on the mobile. But I can do it. I think kind of the thing is you can't really make it happen on the mobile, but you can make it happen on the desktop, which then shows up on the mobile. If that's what you're saying, I totally agree.
Well, I think it's also their objective to use those kind of panel results because they're easier to use on a phone than links. Like, because clicking links with my giant nubs for fingers is crazy.
Right, and the thing is that's where Google Now cards come in, because Google Now says, what do I want? What specials are at this particular? I'm at Walmart. What is on sale today? And the Google card's going to show up that says this is exactly what's on sale, so I know what to purchase there. Now, at some point, if I have the app, Google will read the app and find out what I purchased based on scanning a UPC code on the receipt and say, these are the things you always purchase that are on sale now.
You may be able to answer a question for me that I was wondering about. I've been looking at the cards on YouTube for videos.
Right.
Will that help you on mobile search for video?
Absolutely. Here's the thing, and I was talking with Slosky about this the other day. Think about how many people view videos or how many people play music on their mobile phones, right? So if the most media type used is a music segment or a YouTube video in search, meaning I search for a song, what do I get? I get a YouTube video, right? I don't get a song. I don't get play this on Google Play yet, okay? Sometimes it'll give me a Spotify app, a Beatport app, some other kind of app to open. The dog's got to go out, Dave. Dave, the dog's got to go out. So I think the thing is look at the media type for the pivot point, and everything spins out from the media point from that way out, because music is the most searched. Entertainment is the thing that we digest the most online. So look at the way entertainment works, and type in Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same. What do I get? I don't know. Let's see. Hang on a second, because this will prove my point. Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same.
According to Wikipedia, the song remains the same as the live soundtrack album of the concert film of the same name by the English rock band Led Zeppelin.
Right? Did everybody hear that?
Now, but try the same thing and tell it, say, play, and see if it launches the video.
Google
say, play that song.
Hang on. Play Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same. It gives me a YouTube video first with no knowledge graph entry from Wikipedia at all.
See, on Android, it actually just plays the song. It goes to YouTube and launches the song.
And you don't even have to say Led Zeppelin. You just say...
No, yeah, you could actually, yeah.
Play Led Zeppelin, the song remains... Which music app?
Yeah, tell it.
Oh, wait, that alarm?
YouTube.
That alarm I said earlier? Okay, so it says, what app do I want?
Because you have different apps on your phone other than...
Yeah, but just talk to it. Say YouTube. Just say YouTube, and it should play it.
YouTube. Hang on, let me start over. Play Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same. Okay, bitch, shut up. Play Led Zeppelin, the song remains the same.
Sorry, which app?
YouTube.
Sure.
See? All I can do is press play.
Well, you could probably say play album, I bet you it would have worked, but yeah.
Yeah, it would have said play album. Because, yeah.
But yeah, it's really neat, Terry. I was fucking with this shit for like hours last night, Terry, man. It's impressive. I am impressed.
I've been using YouTube for music for over a year now. Ever since they...
No, but I mean the voice commands, the natural language processing, the voice commands you can do hands-free now. And that's one of the things Buddy was saying in that video we watched, that keynote, that if you're hands-free in a car, you don't have to pull over to send an email. You can just have your phone sitting there on the dock in your car and say, send an email to David, and boom, it pulls it up, and it voice recognizes it, and then says, is this okay? You say send, and done. You're done. You literally don't have to touch your phone. It's impressive.
So you can even write the message?
Yeah, it'll ask you to dictate the message. You dictate it to it, it turns it into text. It says, is this correct? And you say send, or you say correction. She posted to my freaking Cheap Plus wall, man.
When we have auto cars or whatever they're going to call them, you can get into work and start working right as soon as you're leaving the house. That'd be good if you could get on the clock.
Dude,
well, you don't even leave your house.
That's what I call multitasking.
That's the way it's been. I mean, but realize the other part is that you look at some of these things, the way they're going is, I will be asking my Xbox, checks my frags for I will Xbox check expiration date of milk in fridge. And the Xbox or Cortana, it'll now be Xbox Cortana, please check expiration of milk in fridge. And it'll be able to pull my fridge because my fridge will have Wi-Fi.
Yep, for sure. Again, like I said, everything in your house will be like that, you know?
Well, I have Cortana on my PC. Not real impressed, Steve.
Well, I mean, realize, I've got a different office now, but remember when I used to have the tower office? I had 4 different Google things, and they were all voice-enabled, and depending on which way I turned my head, I could do 4 different search queries and then screen cap them all and then save them, and that's the way I was doing customer ranking reports or just looking at customer search results differently, and I could do 4 different keywords at once.
Terry, I'll have a little docked tablet in my bedroom, and I'll just say, okay, Google, show me top 4 Kama Sutra positions.
Wife must appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try that out later. I didn't think of that one.
I'm gonna check out Siri. What are the top 4 Kama Sutra positions?
Interesting question, Steve.
Interesting.
Hold on, I gotta focus. I want to see this. Let's see that again, Steve. Want to show you?
Well, did you see that Pavel Dutzik taught Siri, when you ask it, who's the magic man, it says, Pavel Dutzik.
Who's the magic man?
Try with your Android now.
All right, here's what I got.
Now,
it gave me the thing of the whatchamacallit. Who is the AT&T hostess with the mostest?
Let me think about that. Okay, I found
all right,
this
now,
out. It was the AT&T
Fail.
hostess with the most.
Fail. They use it in the AT&T commercial and everything.
No, let's try a fun one. Grab your Android and say, okay, Google, who owns the SEM Post?
Okay, Google, who owns the SEM Post?
No.
Nothing. All right. Siri, who owns the SEM Post?
Checking on that. Okay, I found this on the web for who owns the Semtoast.
It says Semtoast.
Semtoast.
Who owns the SEM Post?
Let me have a look. Here's what I found on the web for the SEM
Worthless
Post.
piece of... Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Anyways, Terry, we were literally stuffing voice query after voice query into this Android last night.
Here we go.
And it was impressive.
Okay, Google, who is SEMpost.com? Is it the SEM Post or SEMpost.com?
The.
Okay. Who is SEMpost.com? It thinks senator. SEN is senator. Who is the SEMPOS.com?
But like I said, with the rank brain thing, you know, it came back with Frank brain, and all we had to say was no, not Frank, and it corrected the query and came back with rank brain. You can't correct it on the fly.
According to Wikipedia, RankBrain is a machine learning artificial intelligence system, the use of which by Google was confirmed on the 26th of October 2015. It helps Google to process search results and find more relevant search results.
Nice. Very nice.
It's all Wikipedia. So now when Google...
Yeah, but that's a very commonly cited corpus that they use for testing and stuff. Like Wikipedia's, you know, like the Word to Vec project, they literally... You can go and download the entire corpus of Wikipedia for testing and stuff. So, you know, it is always seemingly one of the major corpuses they use for testing this shit. So, makes sense. You know, stands to reason. Why? We've never seen them in the search results? But yeah, Terry, you could literally correct it. And on the fly, this conversational thing is kind of nifty. You know, again, you know, I remember last night, Doc, I still haven't heard back from Danny. I was like, Danny, we need to talk. I literally sent Danny an email, said I'm too lazy to fucking write. And said, you know, call me. Because I don't know why we're not leaning on this angle more. You know what I mean, Jen? Like, I don't think the whole future of this is leaned on enough. I think everyone's too busy trying to get their heads around, you know, what it is now. But what it is now has nothing to do with where we're going. And I think where we're going is the important thing.
Well, and realize, so we were talking about recipes earlier. We were using voice query for recipes.
Well, it was one of the original. It was, well, again, same thing. Recipes was one of the first schemas, right?
Yeah, I know.
You know, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So.
I wrote the schema for recipes. I wrote the one for or someone at my office wrote the one for coupons. There's two other schemas that haven't been written that we have been working with a manufacturer or a brand to write. The schema is way out there, and it's open. So I think schema is the thing that people didn't think about, but schema is huge. And schema is basically classification. Basically, it's classification, clarification, and then context, right? You know what I'm saying? Classification, what is it? Clarification, describe it. Context, why do I need it? Am I missing anything there?
Yeah, no. Again, where there's smoke, there's fire. I follow trails. Tony, you and Jen can have the floor for a moment.
Yeah.
Someone was talking to me about the EAT the other day again, and so I think that's a good place to go. So at least tell everyone what EAT is. EAT.
Over to you, Jen.
It basically is the authority of a website, how good it is in its simplest terms. So we've seen a lot of this in the quality guidelines as well. Google wants people to look at web pages and determine how much authoritativeness it has, how trustworthy it is, and it's kind of like the same as what Tony was saying about Panda. It has a lot of connections with Panda because Panda is all about quality content, and if your site isn't authoritative and it's not trustworthy and it has issues with it, it's obviously going to get hit by Panda or not rank as well. So, I mean, Google's been talking about the concept of EAT well before it even had the name EAT.
Would you relate those concepts to your money in your life queries as well, I guess, to a degree?
Yeah, that is definitely part of your money or your life, but your money and your life is basically like the hyper version of EAT because those types are held so much more accountable in terms of trustworthiness. So if you're doing a search for a bank, obviously like Bank of America and I don't know, whatever other banks you have in the States, those are the ones that are going to rank enormously well for bank-related terms, and you're not going to find, you know, Joe's site where he ranks all the various credit cards or various banking services. So it's definitely all about how trustworthy a site is and how quality it is.
The A and the T are probably authority and trust. What is the E and EAT?
He says in your post,
pressure.
Jennifer, on your post on SEO post, because I'm reading it, you put expertise.
Expertise.
Yeah. It was entity.
I'm pretty sure it was expertise, not entity.
No, I'm reading your post, and it's basically you got expertise. But the way I learned it was, but I guess that's just where's the echo? Okay.
I guess part of it is
Tony's just new here. He has to keep his finger on that mute button because he's using speakers, not headphones.
Okay, well, I'm using for my speakers, believe it or not. It actually works pretty good. But, no, I basically, when I did our new SEO audit, which is basically 105 pages that we've now shared across WPP, but EAT for us is entity, authority, and trust. Entity being the classification of what is it? Is it a product? Is it a local place? Is it a concept or a service? You know what I mean? So I took it a different farther. I'm reading your stuff now, and I remember this in the
I expected Tony to have fed us this by now. Come on, you're our researcher right now. Come on, Tony. What's the E in EAT?
The E, it is expertise. I just went and double checked from the quality guidelines. Yeah.
Post where you have it.
That makes sense for a website because that's what they're doing is demonstrating their expertise.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Where I kind of I have trouble with that because I don't really, I can see authority and trust being a lower value dampened because of expertise, but expertise is subjective. I can be 10 years ahead and it would seem like nonsense to most people, but I would actually...
Terry, I'm going to throw something out. I'm just going to throw this in the dark just because of my history of reading shit, not because I know anything specific, but... Okay, so let's go with authority and trust. Authority, I'm going to assume, is based upon elements of who you're related to in the various graphs and how they share your stuff. Trust, I would probably go back to things on what Google thinks of you, as far as are you trustable? Do you use duplicate content? Are you using crappy spam techniques? Are you do you have a history of things that we don't agree with? Would be the trust angle. Expertise, and I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to guess because remember our conversations with Matt about where you put shit, right? If one post is about duct tape and the next one's about jewelry. I'm going to guess that maybe to Google, expertise is, do you have a common theme that you're known for, that you write about, the content on your site is about? Are you, because when you got to, because authority and trust aren't too hard to figure out. Authority is who relates to you and who you're connected to on the entity graph or social graph or whatever you want to call it. Trust is what Google thinks of you. So expertise, I'm going to guess is probably along the lines of are you publishing a 65 Chevy all the time, or are you publishing about a whole bunch of different cars? Now, are you an expert in a given area? So that's my guess. I've never actually read anything that truly defines that E thing. But
I think that as far as the E go, when Google dropped off there, that kind of told you what they really think of expertise. It's more about sticking to a topic, I believe. Because expertise is subjective. And search engines do subjective terribly. That's their biggest problem, is being subjective.
Well, you got to remember the quality guidelines. Those are for the raters that are sitting there looking at websites.
I was going to say, just let me clear this up. Watching now or later, and then you can go. She's talking about the Google Rater guides and guidelines thereof for the Google Raters, correct? Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, that's where EAT comes from. Is from the quality rater guidelines.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So does your money? Your money, your life also comes from there.
Yeah, that's where it originates from as well. But basically, so you got to remember that these are the guidelines from what the quality raters are looking at, and so they actually go into a lot of detail about how to determine the expertise of a writer. And they, like, one of the examples they use is for medical queries, where
and that's your money or your life concept.
People can be an expert in a medical condition because they suffer from it and they've done a lot of research. And so they were they stress that these people can be experts. It's not just doctors or the WebMDs or the Mayo Clinic sites of the world. There's also tons of these niche sites. So when it comes to expertise, it goes well beyond just being a big brand.
There's also, universities and things of that nature. So yeah, so you kind of get the sense, Terry, that the three kind of are either boosting or dampening factors. I mean, if you have expertise, but your authority is low and your trust is low, those become dampeners. If you have high trust and authority, but you don't have what Google considers expertise becomes the dampening factor. You know what I mean, Terry? In an algorithmic sense, right?
Yeah, I get ya. But and I guess that's important to put in, that this is for the Raider guides, who I guess could be subjective. Or is it subjective as liberal?
Everyone's been quoting that Axe thing, and like Buddy said in that sometimes they listen to the Raiders and sometimes they don't.
Well, they also say they try to match what the Raiders find with their algo. So they will compare and see, okay, the Raiders are seeing these types of sites as being higher quality than other sites, and so they're trying to get their algo as well to match what the Raiders are seeing. Otherwise, there'd be really no point in having Raiders.
In other cases, they were saying that maybe we shouldn't trust the Raiders so much. At least, that's what I got from the presentation, at least, which makes sense again because these are low-paid individuals. So, But yeah, I've been deep diving into Raider guides since 2012 or something. I don't know. Interesting stuff because like you were saying, I think Jen, almost how they train the Raiders is almost as interesting as what the Raiders come back with.
Yeah, there's been a few former quality Raider people who have commented on about how it works and the things they look for, and it's definitely kind of interesting how they go about it. And they're not getting. For the most part, a lot of these Raiders aren't people who are in the industry or experts in any shape or form. They're just people who do a lot of searching, and so they're looking for evaluations not from an SEO perspective, but from a real world, my mom searching, my sister searching, those types of people who are doing searches, not the people like us, because our searches are quite a lot different, and what we see as quality, everyone thinks their site's the best, right?
Say it ain't so. Terry, hold on. I kind of like this. I haven't seen this in the news for a while. Too bad Steve left. The other Steve. I remember back at 2008 or something. We were having fun with this one.
Oh, wait a minute. Bullshit. Sorry. Oops.
Oh, no. Oops. What show did you think you were on?
Hello.
Hello.
Say everything you want. I can't say that because I got, my work. I have to be.
Yeah, well.
It is.
So yeah, Terry. Apparently, wow. Apparently, bounce rates.
I call complete BS.
I don't think you can. Again, I wrote an article recently after Ammon and Bill and Eric were talking to that Googler, and one of the things they did touch upon was what's called implicit user feedback, and that's everything from scrolling to time on page, to bounce rates to everything else.
Window to hitting the contact page.
And I've read all kinds of fucking papers, and I'm talking about papers on efficacy, meaning how well these kind of signals work out. And I to start with, the word noisy makes sense because you look at something like time on page. I walk away from my browser all the time. Literally, I don't know about you, Jen, but I'm in the news kind of business, not as heavily as you, but I'll leave a page open for days just so I don't I'll leave a tab open for days just so I don't forget to put it in my news or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like I want to remember this. Like I've literally had pages open so I get back to it at some point. So my point, I guess, Steve, is that the only time that's ever been shown to be even slightly effective in research in IR circles is a cumulative effect, meaning you can't just look at bounce rates. You can't just look at time on page. You can't just look at this. So for starters, I think it is Terry or Ammon in one of the last shows was talking about asking Google questions that are framed properly. So this is one of those cases to me that this news item is just someone saying, our bounce rates themselves this and that, whereas I think to a search engineer, they're looking at implicit user feedback on a totally different level. They're not looking at an isolated signal. They're looking at a cumulative effect of implicit user feedback.
Right.
So to start with, the question isn't framed properly. Secondly, the other problem I have with this is that he's taking the stance that Google has said we don't watch that. So what applies to me, Steve, is that the Googler in question is talking about analytics bounce rates, not pogo sticking. You know the difference. Sorry, for anyone listening, pogo sticking is when you go to a page and bounce back to the search results, which is totally different than the numbers they're going to get out of your analytics. So when a Googler says, no, we don't use analytics, so we have no idea what your bounce rates are in this, well, that's, again, the question wasn't framed properly.
Right.
So I think that, on that level, Steve, they're talking about actual bounce rates of a website as opposed to pogo sticking from a search result. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He also, in that video that Kristin showed today, how Google works with Mr. Hart, I believe his last name is, and Gary Ilias, they went through the CTR part of it, the opposite, right? The click-through rate, how it affects. He basically said the same thing about it. It's all in context, like.
Right. Like a news article. Like if any of you guys have ever managed an informational site, meaning a site that doesn't do e-commerce, that you're making, it's a news site essentially, or a blog or whatever, that you're making your people that follow you, like Jen's site. I will go because I've already read the article she published earlier in the week. I've already read the article she published last week. I'm going to go there, click on that, go there, and leave. I went in, found what I wanted, and leave. Now, does that mean I didn't enjoy that or respect that? Of course, I did. So, yeah, context is important, too. What kind of information, what kind of query, what kind of page are we talking about? So these things, as far as pogo sticking or even bounce rates, are very centric to the type of information or the type of page or the type of query that's involved in that situation.
Well,
which is funny again because the Googler says that, but he doesn't definitively say we don't use that in some way. Because if you think about it inversely, Terry, that in some situations they might actually use that where they expect to see a less of a bounce rate or a pogo sticking, right? But I've even talked to other Googlers that say, if someone's price comparison shopping, just because one page bounce back to the pogo stick back, then go to the second one, third one, and then finish that search task, we still don't know which one of those three they actually decided. Because that's where you get into explicit user feedback, which is adding to favorites, which is, remember social search when you could +1 stuff, or, so that's explicit when a user takes an action.
There's also the accumulated stuff too, Dave. If, like, for instance, I could show you queries where it said you've clicked this link 9 times. They're keeping track of that. If multiple people are clicking that link 9 times, they're not going to move it in the rankings because some people like it.
Well, think of something in Google Analytics, which is attribution stuff, like attribution of sale. So, you got to understand at some point that if someone did an somewhat ambiguous query for a product or something like that, clicked at 3 different sites, and then a week later, and this is why they keep search history, and this is why this shit's in analytics, they do an entity search, meaning a navigational search. Right? They remember that, Target is where, of those 3 results I clicked last week and pogoed back, Target was the one that I liked. So if I search for laptop, or cheap laptops, clicked on 3 or 4 results, and then pogo stick back, and then a week later I said Target laptops, that might imply to a search engine that this was the one that you originally wanted. And then, Terry, then add in like click bias and everything else. That's why they call it noisy, because it's hard to really tell if that search task was completed successfully, if we gave the right results. It's tough.
I could show you a query where our bounce rate on the page is like 90%. It still ranks. really, really too good. I've been actually trying to drop the rank because it's not really targeted traffic, and it actually pulls the bounce rate down for the whole site. And that's where I'm marked on.
Or
for the site.
Let's roll this. Let's roll this whole. Right. So let's roll this whole concept back to the EAT again. And now let's go to a guy named Ori Allen, which was, what, 2003 or 4 or something like that? Oh, look at Stevie's bobbing. So Ori Allen was a guy that, when he was in school, wrote a bunch of papers called no-click searching. And 10, 15 years ago, we all went, oh, my God, it's the death of SEO. But today we've got knowledge cards. Today we've got full-bred snippets. Like go to Google and say how to, hard-boil an egg. Yeah, odds are it's going to bring back a website link, but it's also going to give you the information from that page so you don't have to fucking click. This is what was, Orion. Orion was the name of the algorithm. There you go. So there you go, folks. Go do your homework. Search Ori Allen and Orion, and it was called no-click searching. And the neat thing, Steve, as soon as they hired him into Google, all his fucking papers from that university and everything he'd ever done disappeared.
Yep.
Poof, gone from the internet within a week. It was like, I was like, okay, something's going on here. I remember back in I think it was 2005 or 6 or something, I don't remember. But I remember at the time, as soon as all this shit disappeared, I tried researching them. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And that was based upon what they called at the time no-click searching. And we all thought this was the death knell for SEO. And we all, how many times we've gone through that. But that's what we see today with knowledge cards. That's what we see with snippets that are the actual recipe or whatever in the results. No-click searching, meaning you don't actually have to click through to the page to get the answer you wanted. So, and that all goes back to the eat stuff in the sense. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the biggest myth in SEO is that getting into those the one box, everything where Google is answering and the one-click stuff actually drives more traffic to your site than
right. Because because Google considers you an authority and trustable. Back to the EAT. Because Google considers that people are going to click through to see what else you're talking about, what other information you have on the site. So it's not the death of SEO; it's actually a bonus for us because Google's put us this huge placement
around that too. They probably want context around the answer, and that's why it drives more traffic.
But
add to that what we used to call brand lift. Anybody remember brand lift back in the day? Which was, if I've got the #1 listing in organic, why would I want the #1 in the people? Because that's what we call brand lift. That people see your name here and they see it here, and these days in social and everywhere else, that brand imprints on their minds and they start to trust and you become an authority.
And free PPC was having your word AdWords ad on the right-hand side in the 3rd position and being in the 1st spot organically. More people would click on
brand lift, motherfucker. Yep, correct. And that's what was called brand lift back in the day. I haven't heard anyone talk about that in many a year.
Papers on that shit for the PR firm.
Well, because you're the man, bro.
Well, no, that was you. I met you in 2003 after Rob Adler, so that's when we started talking search shit. Oops, I'm like.
Oh yeah, man. Don't even get me started on the history thing.
Right, exactly. Oh. But I think the thing is I go back to entity of if you've got a knowledge box, you're now an entity for that query and associated queries for that concept. If Zales Jewelers shows up for how to choose an engagement ring or how to diamond quality, how to figure out diamond quality, or some kind of question to where they are an authority of something, then they are now the entity for that general subject matter on a broader term, and that helps their organic search results. And by doing an answer box, you can pull somebody's main page, their index URL, which it may not be on the first page. You can pull it from at least page 3 to page 1, usually in about 2 to 3 weeks if you can get an answer box query. Because then you're now authoritative for the main concept or subject matter for that query as entity.
And even client-wise, this is a good measurement tool. You know what I mean? Am I becoming that entity? Is this accomplishing the goal that we set out to do? Am I becoming the authority, the entity that comes up that Google understands as being that person or being that reputable source? You know, and that's our goal. I think SEO has just been derived into this whole keyword thing for far too long, and obviously Bill and me and Terry and we've been talking about entities and various beyond keywords for fucking 6-7 years, and you know when Rand and the fucking boys started coining crap like fucking content marketing and what was Rand's fucking thing? What was that? Oh god, it fucking pissed us off for years. It's gone now, but inbound marketing. Inbound marketing. Inbound marketing. That was the one. And people act like they just discovered shit, and those of us have been doing this fucking 20 years. This is normal. This is what we did. How this is new is pathetic.
The Seth Godin School of SEO. The Seth Godin Captain Obvious School of SEO. So, anyway, enough bland fish head.